here we go. Hey, everyone. Slight buffer there before we got started, but so good to be here with you. Thank you for tuning in to Authentic Conversations with Entrepreneurs. This is our 24th episode, and I am here with Carlee Myers. She is she's a stress management pro, and she's the founder of the Stress Less Company. So thank you so much for being here, Carlee. You can say hi to everyone.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and before we dive in, I just want to remind everyone what the show is all about. What the heck is an authentic conversation? Well, obviously, we are having one with Carlee today, but the way I define authenticity and the kinds of conversations I like to have on these shows is all about the growing to the good. I always get it backwards because I say good and growing, but we reverse it in this show. And so Carlee's going to share about a specific journey and from the growing to the good. So, it's never a straight, perfect upward path in business. We know that. If we are an entrepreneur, we know that. So this is all about diving into the journeys of different entrepreneurs because I think there's universal truths in everyone's story, right? Like we can all relate in some way. So thank you for being vulnerable and bold enough to share, Carlee. And today's episode is all about finding the comfort in the discomfort. So with that said, what does this mean to you, Carlee? We talk about the topic, but it's your story. So when did you first really feel this and the need to find that comfort?
Oh my goodness. Well, we were talking about kind of in the green room, we'll say about, how this has shown up. And for me, we talked about how it can show up in business and it can show up in business a lot. But one of the ways that it showed up for me in business is sometimes, not all the time, but every once in a while, I'll have a really uncomfortable client interaction or situation. And so when I was thinking about finding comfort in the discomfort, I thought about a really uncomfortable situation that I found myself in a couple years ago. And so I had brought on a new client, probably, I don't know, maybe it was sometime in the summer. And I had a couple enrollment conversations with this person, and I was thinking, wow, like this person has so much potential. There's so much exciting room for growth to find more inner freedom, more peace, simpler life. And that was something that they were looking for. And I went into this client relationship knowing that this person struggled with addiction. And so this was something that was in my awareness, in my client's awareness. And so we had conversations about what it looked like to work together. And so one of those internal or external boundaries that I had set with this client was to say, hey, I'm 110% behind supporting you through your journey. And I know that you need more support than just me. And so we went into working together. Yeah, we went into working together with the agreement that this client would either remain in a recovery program of some sort ongoing during our work together, or they would consistently work with a licensed therapist or professional, right? So I'm in the coaching side of the front, action focused and whatnot. And then to have them have that support, whether it was on a spiritual level or on a therapeutic level. Right. And so we started working together and things were really great and things were progressing. And then all of a sudden something changed. And at first I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It's like something's up with this client. They're falling behind. And that happens every once in a while, right? We have our ebbs and our flows. And so I didn't think much of it. But then things started to get out of hand. The sense of mutual respect was lost. Not showing up for appointments, some of the language that was being used, there was like an underlying frustration. And I'm like, what is going on? Where is this 360 coming from? And here to find out, after having a really uncomfortable conversation with a client, that they had relapsed. And so they were in active use and just struggling. And so we had raw, open, vulnerable conversations about, okay, well, what happened with recovery support? What happened with therapeutic support? And the reality is that it had not been a priority, and it was still not necessarily a priority. And so I had to have, there was plenty of awkward, awful, uncomfortable, but good, necessary conversations that I had with this client where we had to go back and forth. Okay, this is the type of respectful, honoring type of relationship that I'm
Right.
looking for, and I hope that you're looking for. And
Yeah.
this is what we agreed upon at the beginning. Are you willing to make progress toward that original agreement?
Right.
And then we got into even deeper ground. And the reality is that because of this relapse, this client didn't have the financial means to pursue
Do
both.
both. Yeah.
And so I was feeling like I was in between a rock and a hard place. How
Mm.
do I was feeling disrespected because of what was happening, right? When some folks are in active addiction, their behavior can go from one extreme to the other. So it's not knowing what to
Right.
expect from day to day. My stress levels as the stress management expert were starting to rise, right? And so I knew that
Yeah.
it was time to have a conversation. And so we hear
Yeah.
about, firing clients, and this is what really needed to happen. So
Yeah.
I ended up sitting down with this client and sharing, hey, we've had these conversations to date. This is what, was promised, and this is what's not been met. And I really want to deeply support you. And I think the deepest way that I can support you now is to refund you for the services not yet provided. So, and discontinuing our work together so that you can afford to either get yourself into rehab or to start working with a therapist, a licensed professional around addiction recovery.
Yeah.
And so that was a really scary, uncomfortable conversation for me to go into. I had no idea if this client was going to feel abandoned, because that's the last thing I wanted for them, right?
Right. So many layers.
So many layers. I had
Yeah.
envisioned working with them for the duration of our contract, which was a full year. And
Yeah.
I had, part of me too didn't want to let go of the vision that we had shared
Right.
together.
You had such hope for them, I'm sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I still did, and I still do. And so, but what was really wonderful about the conversation is instead of going into it, triggered and wanting to blame them, this is all your fault. You did this, you did that. I just
Mm-hmm.
shared, hey, this is what I need, and this is also what I feel is best for you. Do you agree? And what was really
Mm.
interesting, to my disbelief, the client agreed with me. They were like, "You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's best for me to focus over here so that I can get what I need," which at the end of the day was physical sobriety. And
Yeah.
so
Wow. I
that's my
I
story,
mean,
or one of them.
one of them. Yeah. I mean, there's so much there. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that story, because I mean, I can only imagine being in that position and the volatility of it, and
Mhm.
holding your ground, and knowing like, okay, they're saying these things or this is happening, but I am safe, all is well, all the things that you had, superpowers you had to exercise probably in that. So first of all, thank you for sharing that. I think it's important to be heard. And I also feel like it's kind of an extreme, right? Like, so the good news is for the listeners, like maybe that's not necessarily going to happen for you, but it is. I mean, I myself have been in a position having to fire a client, more than
Mm.
one. I think
Yeah.
you can't be in business without experiencing that. But there was such richness to what you provided there. So if I can unpack it a little bit,
Yeah. Let's do
yeah,
it.
I mean, I love, so you, so first and foremost, I think you hit on like at the very beginning, you hit on like just the discomfort of like feeling uncomfortable in a client relationship. Like
Yeah.
it starts out on this high note in the best of intentions, and you were like, okay, yeah, and I had to just come to terms with like that discomfort. And
Mhm.
so I think probably I would be willing to bet that somebody who is either here live or going to see it later is going to be in that position, because it's just too
Yes.
common to happen. Like there's a lot of,
Yeah.
we like to talk about the success and all the great things, and we don't talk about this enough, like the discomfort that happens.
Yeah.
And I think I've been so excited about this episode because I think it's so important. because when we don't talk about it, we don't know how to manage it. We don't know what to do. And if there's anybody that knows, it's you. So I really am so excited. But before we get to like kind of like the framework of that, which I heard and I want you to talk more about, I feel like too that there were really important words in there, like, you know, like setting kind of like the agreement and, you know, having mutual value and benefit together. Like these are things that as a business owner, if they're not words in your vocabulary, they're ones to write down right now because they need to be like the foundation or like the spine of what you do, I think. And so, you know, what is that clear value that I want to provide and what do I want to receive, right? Like, what is this agreement that we're doing? Because there's a lot of times I feel business owners focus on what they're selling and what they want to deliver, but they don't think about like the expectations that they place on their clients of how they'll engage, like when should they respond, you know, like, and so it's a slippery slope then because you don't know how you want to be treated. So I think defining that is important. And so you obviously I think had done that work, so you knew. But I think the other couple words that came up is really knowing like the priorities, right? And like so that's part of I think agreement. And then like what's in my control. And so what I love about your story is you always remembered what power you did have, which is choice. And no one can ever take that away from us. So you know, you felt like, okay, I feel like a loss of control here. Like, you know, probably I'm just guessing. Like,
it was a little chaotic.
Right. I'm kind of in chaos. And so you kind of grounded yourself and reminded yourself, okay, I have choice here. But my favorite part of the whole story is that you never stopped serving them. Like the agreement, I think, and I'm putting a lot of words in your mouth, so I want you to just be like, no or yay. Okay. So like I'm taking some liberties here, but I feel like because I know you before this conversation, so I am taking a little bit more liberty from that too. So, and I'm a fan, obviously, but I feel like in that agreement, you know, you, in that beginning of any relationship with your clients, like you want what's best for them. And there's an agreement that is, I'm going to support and or grow you. And when you realize that, whether it was your choice or not, like you still saw the potential, but they couldn't meet you where you were. They couldn't receive what you had. You were able to let them go. So, but you still were the best coach for them, right? Like you literally gave them the direction. You're like, okay, I realize you can't receive this now. So, you know, here's what we're going to do. So
there are steps for them. There were steps that needed to be achieved before. Right. And, you know, there's physical sobriety is one of the, you know, I have the stress less method. It's 5 steps. And the very first step is manage your energy, which is a more woo way of saying calm your nervous system. And that one piece of it is emotional sobriety. And the other piece is physical sobriety. And so
what do you mean by that?
By physical sobriety. So emotional sobriety is, I'll start there. It's accepting all emotions as they are without wanting to change them, without changing them or trying to change them. Now there's more work to be done around shifting and transforming emotions, but not spiritual bypassing in some sense by trying to fix them as soon as they come up. Physical sobriety, usually we're talking about somebody who, now again, this client was in an extreme, but somebody who's experiencing anxiety and stress on a day-to-day, and they're like, I don't know what the heck it is. I know I've got these stressors, but I'm still feeling this in my body. And so then we're looking at things like caffeine. We're looking at things like sugar. Like when are we, you know, the sugar that we're intaking, things that can trigger adrenaline to release in the body and create a stress response without ever having a stressor. So that's, you know, this client was pre-step 1. This client was pre-step 1. He was on step 0. And so he needed to go back. We weren't just talking coffee and sugar and, you know, things that can trigger adrenaline. We're talking about substance abuse, and that's a whole nother category. And I wanted to speak to something that you shared, which is this mutually beneficial relationship between client and coach or client and business owner. For
Yeah.
me, one of the things that I learned along my journey, including with this client and other clients, is what it is that I was expecting of my clients. I used to think that, okay, they paid me and then I have to give everything that I have. And I do give
Yeah.
everything. But there is a mutual exchange. And so some of those things would be like, one of the things that I require is that clients sit down and create intentions and share those. There's a little bit of prep work that they do before every single call. And so
Mm-hmm.
we're both of us are never put in a situation where we show up for a call and we're like, what are we going to talk about? Well, I don't know. Right? We
Yeah.
want to make sure that we're continually moving forward. I get to take the information that they provide and then also take my vast, uh, luggage of knowledge, all of my knowledge, and I get to combine those two
Yeah.
and prepare. Another thing that I have actually in my contracts is about kindness and respect and what that looks
Mm-hmm.
like between,
Mm-hmm.
from my end and from their end. And so there are actually a list of things of boundaries that are communicated up front through my enrollment process and in my contracts to make sure that everyone is benefiting, myself
Yeah.
and them, so we can focus on our one primary objective, which at the end of the day is finding more inner freedom, whatever that looks like for the
Mm.
client.
Yeah. I love that. And I think you're kind of expanding on like the three core pieces I heard when you were like, this is what I did then. Because you had what do I need? What do I want? And what are we agreeing on?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, yeah, like that's people respond well to like the simplicity, right? So if you take like, what are the three things I'm going to remember? I think that, I mean, you are the expert here, but I'm hearing like need, want, agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to like what you're hitting on, we're talking about like the expectations. So when you don't have to wait for there to be a problem. I mean, probably
Mm-hmm.
some of those expectations came from like the road and then you're like, I need to add this to my thing, right? Like that
Of course.
happens.
Yeah.
I had that
Yeah.
happen in my business. And that's okay, but I feel like don't wait for there to be the discomfort or with a client, like really sit down and say like, okay, what do I actually want in my business and the relationship with my clients, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the need, want, and agreement and putting that into your agreement in some way is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely figuring out what it is that you need and want in your client relationships is so key, because that sets you up, that sets the
It's not just what you want to
intentions of.
sell.
Yeah, yeah, not
Yeah.
just, when
And
you're
not,
sitting
I
down, and I
need
know.
money. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah,
it's much more.
not much more, and I know a lot of us will sit down and we'll be like, okay, I need to create a new program, or I'm in the middle of creating an online course, or I'm creating whatever it is that I'm selling. When you're
Yeah.
creating that, I would invite, everyone who's listening to also think, what is it that the client needs to do to set them up for success? So, like, for instance, if I was a service provider that was creating an online course, well, maybe in my
Yeah.
contract with my client, I would say, well, it's, here's what I expect of my client: that they watch a training and complete the assignment every
Yeah.
once, at
Show
least
up
a
ready.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Show up ready. Make sure you have an internet connection, because that's going to really help you out.
Right.
Make sure that you're showing up consistently, and make a recommendation for how often they're showing up. Um,
Yeah.
make sure that the client is expected to complete the assignments, right? What is it that, you're expecting of them, so that they can get the results that they want? Because just paying for a course isn't going to get the results that they want. You can do everything you can on your end, but there is some way in which the client needs to show up. And so if you figure out
Yeah.
what you need and want, then from that client, and you communicate that, that is not only going to serve you, because you're going to get better testimonials, better results, better, across the board, more sales
Yeah.
probably, because people are going to be shouting about you from the rooftops, but you're also going to be setting that client up for the results and the success that they're looking for too.
Yeah. I love it. And I feel like too, what you're saying, like when you create this, like this is how you find comfort and discomfort, because we cannot control when discomfort happens to us. But even like saying, okay, this is how I want to be respected, or this is how I want, like, this is my house, essentially, right? Like my business. So, I I feel that the only thing that can happen naturally is that you feel more comfortable. Like, oh, I'm really putting that stake in the ground. I'm really saying, like, this is, and that's your intention. And so you bring that forward, and then you're communicating that. And then the inevitable, at some point in time, sorry, just life, right? Like discomfort that comes isn't as uncomfortable. You at least, have, well, we agreed on this, and that's not what's true anymore. There's a great question from one of our viewers, if I can, I feel like it's fitting here. Kevin Strauss is watching, so thank you, Kevin. And he said, I feel like most stress is rooted in our uncomfortable relationships. They're all too common in life. Why?
Oh,
I feel like
stress. Yeah.
it's almost like, I love this question, Kevin, because I feel like it's like the question within the question. So we're like automatically going to, oh, you get a difficult client, but he's almost going like, why do we even have all these uncomfortable relationships? So I feel like, what do you say, Carlee? I'm sure you have some thoughts on that.
Well, I will share that, there's relationships are in the top 5 stressors in the US, according to a recent study put together by the American Psychological Association. But what's interesting is I think relationships maybe are number 4 on the list. But number 1 is money, number 2 is job pressure, and I believe number 3 is health. And what's interesting about those is that, okay, well, if money is a top stressor, where is the money coming from? Other people, usually.
Right.
Job pressure. Where's the pressure coming from? Other people. Probably. And personal health concerns. Okay, well, maybe it's not coming from other people, but we do know in studies that the more stressful or toxic our relationships are, the more likely we are to have health issues. And if you add on top of that a doctor that's not supportive, then, wow, relationships are really touching everywhere.
Yeah.
I will share
that. Interesting. If you don't have a blog post on that, like, I totally feel like you should do one, because I feel like I love that, like dissecting of the top 5 list. Like some people would just like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But like how you just related relationships to every single one of them, like, damn, yeah. Like,
wait a second. Relationships are everywhere. And that's why, I see them as one of the most common stressors, and why in more recent years, I've focused on becoming that relationship enhancement expert, because they touch every aspect of our life. But also to speak to that, the number 1 reason that people fight is objection to difference. And so it makes sense that we have so many uncomfortable relationships, because we are all so different. And like, so
we're designed that way.
We are.
When my daughter was younger, there's a Daniel Tiger episode, and it's all like, we're in this holiday season, so that's why I feel it's relevant. But it's like, we're like snowflakes. We're all different.
Yes. We're all unique little butterflies. We're all unique snowflakes, and we are all beautiful. And we can have, this dissonance when we realize that we're different. Because a lot of us, one of the things that can cause stress in relationship is that we have this picture of the other person as a specific way, right? Because our brains, the way that we are they function and we're wired is, if we don't know all the details, we fill them in.
Yeah.
And so usually we fill the details.
So we're taught in school, so
we fill in the blanks with whatever, with whatever we unconsciously want to fill the blanks with.
Truth that we place on them that may not be their truth. Yeah. Wow.
So it makes a lot of sense.
Truth bomb right there, Carlee. I love it. So is a lot of the work that you're doing, I mean, I feel like, so yeah, I love relationship enhancement, but is a lot of it, I mean, oh my God, I'm like having like eureka moment here. Like, it is the comfort and the discomfort. So it's like, we're not going to change like the dissonance that you might feel in a relationship, or like the fact that you are a unique snowflake and maybe you don't like certain snowflakes, right? But learning how to find that comfort in the discomfort is core to your brand. So, so tell us a little bit more about like who you work with. I know, like, I'm like on the edge of my seat. Like, I mean, you mentioned like step one, like manage your energy. Like, who do you work with, and like, how do you bring them along to finding comfort? Because I feel like, am I wrong? But I feel like comfort might begin within. Like, you
Yeah.
can't
Well, it's
really,
interesting.
like, a lot of people are focused outwardly and like blame and all the things you were saying, like triggers. And they
Mhm.
might be pointing the finger, but really you can't get comfortable until you begin within. So I love that you started with like manage your energy, because that's part
Yeah.
of like health and
Yes.
well-being.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason it's foundational, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, it starts with us, but it is we don't live in a vacuum, and we are in relationship with other people. And so it's important to I'm going to use, some terminology because I can't help it. It's important to self-regulate, meaning calm your own nervous system, meaning soothe your own experience or your
yeah,
emotions. But it's
yeah.
also, we can't deny the biological fact of the matter, which is in our most intimate relationships, we are co-regulating, which is a fancy way of saying that our bodies actually sync up, our heart rates, our blood pressure, like our physiology actually syncs up with another person.
And I like
So
actually
we,
like, I don't know if it's possible, but I feel like my heart just like smiled when you said that. I was like, oh, that's so beautiful.
it is, it's
I've
so
never, I've
beautiful.
heard self-regulate. I've never heard co-regulate. So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And
Sorry, I
that's actually
interrupted.
what, no, and that's actually what inspired one of my newer offerings, which is, most of the work that I do is private, but I do have some new group offerings because I want to acknowledge the reality that we do co-regulate with other folks. And so
Yeah,
if we're in
yeah,
relationship with someone who has that calm nervous system, it's going to help us be much more calm too.
yeah.
Um, but
I
yes, get me back on track here.
No, well, I was gonna say, I we also have to be respectful of your time and everyone else's time. So I feel like, honestly, Carlee, I knew it would be like this. Like, I just want to like keep swimming in the waters. Like, it's so beautiful. Like, I love what you teach. I love what you've learned, and I know you practice it in every way that you show up. So thank
Mm,
you.
thank you.
But there's another great comment from Kevin that I just wanted to read because I feel like it needs to be heard. He said, "If I'm different than you and you're different than me, does that make you better than me? Are you more valuable? Am I less
Mm,
valuable?" And I
mm,
feel like I'm reading it out loud here because I feel like it's the unspoken thing. Because, I
mhm,
mean, if there's one thing I think that entrepreneurs often do too, it's like there's two common things that happen, like the imposter syndrome. Like, am I valuable? Am I what? Oh my God, am I the person to say this? Can I claim this? Like that, right? Which is a relationship with self.
mhm,
And it's the comparison. Like,
mhm.
comparison kills. So like, they're
Yes.
looking at the outside. I mean, from my perspective as branding and marketing, that they're looking at the outside, how they're showing up, all this stuff, and they're comparing, but they have no idea what's happening behind the scenes and how that
Yeah.
person actually feels and how
Yeah.
much it's costing them or any of those things. And that's true
Yes.
beyond marketing. So
Yeah.
I love this comment, Kevin. So yeah, your
It's
thoughts,
such
Carlee?
it's such a good comment. And it reminds me of the saying, like, it takes all kinds of kinds. I'm thinking of a country
I
song.
love
I
that.
grew up in a rural Maryland, so forgive my country music references, but it takes all kinds of kinds, and it's true. And from the science of it, we can think about attachment theory, which is the way our level of comfort with intimacy with someone else. We've got the
Yeah.
anxious, the avoidant, and the combo platter, and we've got the secure. And
Combo platter.
I called it, I just made that up, the combo platter, the anxious avoidant. But you know, the anxious and the avoidant and the anxious avoidant we get like the bad rep. They get the bad rep. Everybody wants to be secure, but the reality is that there's actually a survival function for the anxious avoidant, and for the avoidant. And the anxious is trying to get the tribe together. Everybody's got to work together. If something crazy happens, we're going to be together, and we're going to survive this. It's keeping the human race alive. The avoidant is the type of person that's going to keep the human race alive when you can't trust anyone, and things are just really volatile from a social standpoint. And you got the anxious
Let's hope
avoidant
that
who
day
can
does not
figure out,
come. But yeah.
yeah. But no, like,
Yeah.
from we're talking doomsday now, but
Yeah.
there actually is
This is taking a turn, Carlee.
this is taking a turn, yeah. But all that to say is that there is a
A reason
purpose.
it's there.
It's a
Yeah.
reason it's there. And I would argue that that's the same. the same point applies to just every differing aspect of all of our personalities, all of our viewpoints, that there, maybe we don't agree, maybe we think they're completely wrong, but maybe there is a function. Maybe we don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
there perhaps is a function that it takes all kinds of kinds, and we are all equally valuable because of that.
Amen. I love that. I love that. Well, okay, I have to share your website because they haven't already gone there. They need to. So if you don't know Carlee, you need to visit her site, stresslessco.com. And I know this is just the tip of the iceberg of all the richness that you provide. But I'm enthralled. So you can find Carlee on here on LinkedIn, Stress Less with Carlee. But your mainstay, I think, is Instagram. Is that correct?
Instagram. I like to play around on Instagram.
And she's got the moves. So you got to find Carlee on Instagram. She's a
Want to see some
dancer.
dancing videos? Come check me out on Instagram.
I love it. I love it. I think, there's like here's my credentials and here's what I know and let me advise. But you're like wholly you, which is why you're a perfect guest on the show, because you show up and you dance, and like someone might go like, well, what does that have to do with that? But it has everything to do with it, because it's like, when I feel like when I watch you doing these, like the dances and stuff, it's like I naturally move too, because I love dancing too. But like, I feel like it's like you're in relationship with yourself, and you're saying like, that's what we want to do. And yet life is like at least 80% sitting behind a damn desk and a computer. So amen. Amen for getting up and moving, and for just modeling it. So follow Carlee. This is my big yes. Follow Carlee. But you have something to share with our listeners, our viewers. So I'm going to put that up, and tell us a little bit more about this assessment.
Yeah, so I have a complimentary, a free relationship assessment. So if you listen to our chat today and you're thinking about all of the different relationships, maybe the ones that are causing some stress in your life, maybe a little discomfort, this would be a great place for you to just further explore and understand what might be causing that dissonance in your specific circumstances. I love to work with business owners to support their client relationships. I've done this for years now. And also, we don't live in a vacuum. So our personal relationships as well as our professional. So this assessment is really about, we were really going to look at, what's the challenge, what's not working in your relationships. Really look at your relationships from a big picture. We'll look at, okay, what's the ideal based on your vision for your life and your world. And then we'll create some next steps for you. Those next steps could be for you to take away on your own, but it also may be working together. And so that calls to explore that.
Well, it's dissonance and closing the gap, perhaps. So
yes.
This is a call. The assessment is a call with you, or they fill something out, or
yes. So what you'll do is you'll visit this site. There will be some directions, and then you'll schedule a call.
Your site, not this site. It's your site.
Yes.
Right?
This my
awesome site that's mine.
Banner. Visit that site, and you'll see the directions. Grab a spot on my calendar, and we'll take it from there.
What a gift. You and this actual assessment. So thank you so much, Carlee. I feel like this is such a wonderful way to end the year, and so happy holidays, everyone. But I feel like, while you're out there getting gifts for everybody, just really slow down, take the time. If you've tuned in this long, visit stresslessco.com/assessment, because I have no doubts that the conversation and the time with Carlee will be very enriching for you. So give yourself that gift. Thank you so much. And we'll see y'all next time. Thank you, Carlee.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.